Welcome to our Saturday Simulcast, June 29th edition. And I want to thank the Union Club Hotel, Boiler Up Bar, 811 Bistro,
Hmm.
spot on campus. Campus a little slower right now, but there's still some summer school activity going on. And there's always events and weddings and things like that are going on at the Union. So the Union Club Hotel is usually a pretty hopping place. Tom Dienhart, speaking of which, it's been a busy month for Ryan Walters and company as we come to the end of June, which is always a busy, but Purdue has 9 commitments at this point. Still some folks on the board. What are some of the big storylines as we go into the first week of July as Purdue tries to put a wrap on the month of June?
Hmm. First, Al, I sort of like campus in the summer.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Maybe we grew up here and yeah, there's that whole different vibe and it's a real peaceful place.
Yes,
But
it is.
it's yeah, a lot of fun, but I digress. Yeah, as anybody who reads the site and follows GoldandBlack.com knows it's been a busy month. June has all the official visits, Alan. 26 took place this month. Purdue netted some commitments out of those OVs. I think, as you noted, so far, the class of 2025, Purdue has 9 commitments. And know this too, Alan, it's not going to be a big class. 14 to 16 guys is what I'm told. So not a big class. They're already at 9, right? So 5, 6, 7 more guys to go at the most, and still work to do. But some nice guys on the board already, Alan. They got their quarterback a long time ago in Sawyer Anderson, the kid from Texas, Dallas area, 3-time state champ, about a 5'11" kid who can really move around, and yeah, a couple good looking running backs. I love the kid from Elkhart, Jerron Thomas. I think he's a steal. Cameron Gorn, Allen, Brandon Gorn's son, committed recently. Big, good 6'5" kid, offensive tackle. His best football is ahead of him. They got another offensive tackle, but I digress. That's all sort of summarized on the site. Who's left, right? The official visits are over. They're waiting on some decisions from some kids. I think there's a whole lineup of guys who are set to announce their commitments, Alan. I chronicled
Yeah.
the ones I know, the dates on Boiling Over this last week. So Purdue's obviously is keeping in touch with those guys, hoping to add. There's a really good looking offensive lineman from Ohio, cool, a kid from the Sedan, who I think they have a good shot to get. Grant Bierman Allen, he's an inside linebacker, another kid from Ohio, 6'4", 6'5" kid, ILB, who I think they have a good shot. But you never know, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on names. A lot of times names don't mean much to people, but again, a big summer. The summer is always a big time for this recruiting to take place, and Purdue's trying to make some headway here and add some pieces to their future program. And Alan, you kind of wonder, right? In this day and age, even once you get these guys here, how long are they going to be here?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah, it is. It's a head in a swivel time, and Ryan Walters trying to build stability and has had some momentum in recruiting. This class, at least to date, which whether it means the internet cyber paper that it's written on, ranked lower in the Big Ten at this point. But again, it's a smaller class, and
yeah, it's going to kill
putting
you.
together, well, it's hard to compare where the Boilermakers are with everybody else. No, your sense, and you talk to the coaches and see the work that's being done. Uh, they're in the game with a lot of folks, and
Yeah.
that part of the try. And I think the work ethic there seems to be pretty strong. They're pretty impressive from uh, getting in kids' homes. They're going to be a couple big decisions on Friday that also, whether they go your way, it doesn't always go your way in recruiting, and that's kind
No,
of the way it is.
it doesn't. And I get it. People get disappointed. I'm sure you imagine how the staff feels, right? When you don't get a guy. But I think another thing to remember too, Purdue brought in a lot of guys this last year, Alan, not just freshmen, but portal guys, especially on the offensive line, especially at wide receiver. And I think that's impacting the recruiting. Sometimes guys look at depth charts and rosters and make decisions on how quickly they think they can get on the field. So, um, Right now, they only have the one wide receiver committed, LeBron Hill from Hammond, Indiana, big 6'4" kid. Allen, he may end up being the only receiver they get in his class. But again, they just brought in, what, 3 portal guys, a junior college receiver, and 4 high school kids last year. 8 new receivers came in the program. All are due to come back in 2025. And the offensive line, too, was an area that got a lot of help from the portal and from the high school ranks, too, last year. They have 2 guys right now. They may add that third I was talking about, the kid from the Sedan in Ohio. So keep that in mind as well. The secondary, Allen, they had 3 targets back there. And that was another spot where they brought in, gosh, 5 or 6 kids last year. Nice players. And Corey Beasley, Luke Williams from Chicagoland, the 4-star safety, Ty Hutkins from Michigan, Terry and Grant Allen, a 5-star cornerback from Tennessee. So they brought in a lot of kids. Plus, they brought in the portal kids, too, from the secondary. So I think that impacts the decision of these high school kids, too. And, I think there was disappointment, Alan. There was the kid from Hamilton Southeastern this week, Mason Alexander, a 4-star cornerback who's going to go to Pitt.
Yeah.
Pick Pitt over Purdue. And I think maybe I think some of that had to do with the fact that Purdue's loaded at the position. They have a couple guys still on their board in the secondary. They hope to get a kid named Dwayne Galloway from Ohio and a kid from Cincinnati, Ciante Stewart as well. So keep your eyes peeled for those 2 guys if they jump on board as well. I think there's a big defensive tackle from Cincinnati named Drayden Pavey, who is going to commit to Purdue on July 2nd. He's one I think most people feel pretty good about. So, you've been doing this for almost 30 years and you've covered recruiting and read about it probably more than you ever wanted to, be honestly. And and you know what a crazy world it is. And just because someone says they're coming, so still a long way until December when guys got to really sign that letter of intent and say, yes, I will be a Boilermaker. So maybe they're able to flip some guys between now and December as well. You just never know. Maybe some guys who said they're coming to Purdue won't come.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is don't get too in love with anybody right now, right?
Well, they had a flip this week from
Yeah.
Louisville. Talk about that. I mean, that's just the way of the world today.
Yeah, always that kind of is. LeBron Hill, people were telling me that he was kind of leaning to Purdue the whole time. Then he takes the visit to Louisville and commits, which was a real head scratcher to a lot of people, I think. And all along, I was told there's probably a good chance he's going to flip to Purdue, and yes, and then it ends up happening. Will he stay? We'll see.
Yeah.
Just so fans too, I've talked to most of the head coaches of these commits, and I'm going to start posting those stories. I call them head coach breakdowns, just to sort of give users of the site another perspective on these kids from their high school head coach. So I talked to LeBron's head coach this last week too. How about that, Alan? Our first LeBron.
Yeah.
Maybe many future LeBrons we see throughout the world.
Ronnie can't be too far away, so there.
That'll be his nickname. But anyway, so that's always a fun perspective when I talk to the head coaches and get their viewpoint on how they use the kid, why they think he chose Purdue. And LeBron Hill's a real good head coach up there at it was Morton High School in Hammond, Indiana. So again, Alan, he's a good looking guy, more 6'4" receiver, 185 pounds. You love those big rangy wideouts, especially down in the red zone.
Yeah, no question. All right. Some interesting news this week. And of course, we always try to remind folks, we would love to have you become a member of GoldandBlack.com. Tom Dienhart personally will send you a note of congratulations.
I will.
So, but also you can like us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on iTunes, make sure you leave a positive review. All those reasons to become a member of GoldandBlack.com. We'll talk some basketball in the second half of this Saturday Simulcast with Brian Neubert as well. All right, big news, really. I thought impressive news. I know we kind of need to get used to the new normal, but Ken Halpin, Purdue's deputy athletic director, handles a lot of the external affairs with Purdue. You talked to him, and season ticket sales are the highest since 2008, Joe Tilder's last year in West Lafayette. Really impressive. Purdue had a 4-8 season last year. What do you attribute some of this to? Is this just the way of the world right now? Is Ross-Ade Stadium renovation? Some still excitement about Ryan Walters? Excitement about men's basketball? What do you look at in all this, or
I
all the
think,
above?
yeah, I think it's all the above, Al. I think it's a big stew of all those things, a potpourri, if you will. We talked about that a little bit yesterday when we met with me, you, and Brian.
Yeah,
I think some of it's the mojo. You mentioned basketball. Everybody sort of, I think, builds off that energy to a degree, right? There's just everybody loves a winner. Everybody loves success. It's more fun to come to work, right? More fun to do everything when you're a winner. And I think some of that rubs off on everybody at the university to
no
some
question.
degree. There may be some hokum to that, but I think there is a little bit of truth to it. I think too, Alan, this is still sort of the honeymoon phase for Walters. There's still that sense of awe and wonder of what could be. What could this be, Alan? We're still sort of unwrapping the present, if you will. And I think, let's be honest, Alan, it's a pretty good home schedule.
Notre Dame there for the first time since 2013,
Yeah, yeah,
and Daryl Hazel's first year, and that used to always be the bellwether. Remember, we talked about that, how Purdue would have much bigger ticket sales the years that Notre Dame came to West Lafayette when Purdue played Notre Dame, whatever year from 1946 to
yeah,
2013 or whatever it was,
yeah.
2014 actually officially. But my point is, Notre Dame has an effect on that, certainly. And you've got Oregon and Penn State coming in, right? Friday night with Oregon. That in only 6 games, too. That's an interesting factor as well in terms of home games this year.
Yeah, I tell you, Purdue has to have 7 home games, you think. If they can get to that point one day, we'll see. But yeah, you mentioned Friday night against Oregon. How much fun is that going to be, Alan? I mean, Oregon, when these polls come out, if people are buying the preview magazines, already got Lenny's magazine, but Oregon is like number two in the country.
Yeah.
It's going to be Ohio State and Oregon atop every poll, I think, coming into the year. So a special Oregon team's coming here for a Friday night, Alan. Thinking maybe a blackout that night, just between me and you. And and you mentioned Penn State's coming in. Nittany Lions are the Nittany Lions, right?
They're predicted to be top 10 again, maybe
Yeah,
win.
great quarterback, Drew Allar. Yeah, terrific program. Maybe one of Franklin's better ones this year. And October 28th, I think, Alan, is the Big Ten opener for Purdue. It's Nebraska.
September 28th. Yeah.
September
Yeah.
20th. So and that's Nebraska.
Yeah.
That thing will sell out. So that's another one that a lot of tickets will go. So I think it's really the Indiana State game and then the game against Northwestern is at home. The other 4 home games, I think, have a good shot to sell out. So we'll see. Again, boy, 2008, Alan, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
When Ken told me that, I was really surprised. So yeah, good for Purdue. Yeah, Ken Halpin, boy, he's a good man. He's a smart man, and I know they're doing all they can over there. But again, it certainly does help being able to sell that type of schedule to fans as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of, like we mentioned, a lot of away fans who already purchased tickets to come to Ross-Ade State and watch their team play this year. Great opportunity for Purdue too, Alan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is just that. And the fact that you have those the Notre Dame coming here is just
Mm,
big. And again, I think the stadium renovation certainly has been a
yeah.
big hit, been a big part of what has worked well. And I think that all those factors play into a very successful, or at least early season ticket campaign, and looks like a really good year for ticket sales for Purdue. So that part's it's
Yeah, a
good.
lot of fun having Notre Dame back, isn't it? Coming into Ross-Ade. I can't believe it's been 2013. I took that series for granted for so many years. Just don't that was the way the world was, Alan. Purdue always
Yeah.
played Notre Dame in football. And when you lose it, like anything in life, when you lose something, you appreciate it more and you realize how cool it was to play a program like that. And the number of schools that would die to play Notre Dame every year. I mean, would die to. And Purdue got to do that for a long time. And now they're back on the schedule for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, big part of Purdue's football history is beating
Yeah.
Notre Dame, going back to the days of Dale Samuels, Len Dawson, Bob Greasy, Mike Phipps. I know that's 1950 to 1970, but if you talk about programs with tradition, and that's been a lot of Purdue's tradition, has been those great iconic games,
Yeah.
uh, Purdue and Notre
Hey,
Dame.
real quick too, Alan. Um, 40 years ago, 1984.
Yeah.
I like 1984 because I was in college still. I just was texting with Jim Everett. I'm going to get Jim on the line. I want to do it I want to hit from his perspective. That 1984 season was a special, special year for Purdue football. You know that. You were in the athletic department back
Yeah.
then. What a fun year. The coming out party for Jim Everett, and I can't believe it's been 40 years, Alan,
Yeah.
but that was a fun year, a fun team, big wins, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan. Alan, you remember nobody thought anything was going to happen to Purdue that year.
Yeah.
Turns out to be a great year. Leanne Burton, I think, was on the hot seat probably.
No question. Had he had not had a good year that year, he probably would have been gone. And the Purdue only time ever, right, that they beat Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Michigan in the same year. And of course, that game, the dedication game
Vacation.
for the Hoosier Dome, turned into the RCA Dome, and now it's not even there anymore. That's what's amazing. So,
Oh, and I remember that summer of '84, going down to see the Olympic basketball team play.
yeah, right. Bob Knight and company
Yeah,
there, and they had a crowd of about 60,000 people for that. Some heady days for the city of Indianapolis, and it had a lot to do when the Colts came to town. Of course,
yeah,
Purdue played in that facility as the dedication game before the
yeah,
Colts, I believe, ever played an official NFL game, and
yeah.
yet the first year of the Colts, I believe, in Indianapolis. So yeah, crazy things that changed the landscape really of sports in the state of Indiana. When you talk about the Colts and Peyton Manning, and of course Purdue and Indiana's impact on it has been pretty darn impressive over the years. All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your weekend. We're going to switch gears to Brian Neubert, talk a little Zach Edey. He had a big week,
Yeah.
but his number 9 pick by the Memphis Grizzlies, big deal for Zach, and a little bit of Purdue basketball here in our second segment. So stay tuned. We're going to make a very smooth transition from Tom Dienhart to Brian Neubert, and we'll do that here in a moment.
Brian Neubert joins us. Talk a little Zach Edey. Of course, Wednesday night, Edey, the number 9 pick in the first round, Memphis Grizzlies, and quite an accomplishment for Zach. And you were kind of hinting that way. I know we were talking leading up to this. Nobody knew for sure what was going to happen. You mentioned you'd written that morning, Brian, Wednesday morning, about that the Grizzlies were certainly on the list. What was your reaction when it all came down and you saw his name come up? I mean, how did you take all of that?
Well, I was a little surprised he went as high as he did, but I also wrote for weeks. I think people are going to be surprised by how high he gets, or how much higher he gets drafted than they think he's going to get drafted. So I guess I surprised myself. But no, as soon as I saw the draft order come out and I saw Memphis at number 9, I thought Memphis just made a ton of sense. I didn't have any intel or anything like that. I just thought that made a lot of sense. Now, leading up to the draft, I thought Memphis might try to trade down and still get him. But the fact that they took him at 9, well, perhaps they couldn't pull off a deal they liked, or maybe they just thought that they couldn't wait on him because somebody behind them, whether it be Utah or Oklahoma City, 2 viable possibilities there, might have taken him. So I think he did really well in workouts. I think whatever questions, NBA people might have had, they must have gotten satisfactory answers to. I think people are drafting him, knowing what he is, which I think is important every draft, that NBA teams know what they're getting. They aren't drafting somebody to try to be something they're not. That's what I thought. That's how I thought Carson Edwards helped himself a few years back when he came back for his junior year, is that I think he dispelled any thought that he was a guy you had to draft as a point guard and try to make him into something he's not. I think, Zach Edey coming back this year, I think he showed that he can play in pick and roll. He can play some away from the basket, and be more of an NBA type center. He's not going to be the most fleet-footed guy in the world, but I don't think anybody's trying to fool themselves and convincing themselves that he is. But he obviously did really well in workouts. As I've said all along, don't draft him as a 4-year college guy. Draft him as a 22-year-old who's played like 8 years of basketball.
Yeah, right.
There's got to be some upside left in there somewhere, and it's going to be up to the NBA to figure that out. But no, it's just a great fit with Memphis. I thought it made sense to have him next to Jaren Jackson at times. Jaren Jackson is more of a perimeter-oriented big man who can play the 4 and the 5. You don't want him necessarily banging with really, really big guys all game. From a health perspective, he's had some injuries, but you also want him to play on the perimeter a little bit more offensively. I think putting a big physical rebounder next to him is good for him. And then you just got the best screen setter in the draft to put with Ja Morant. Pretty good deal. So I just thought it was a good fit. It made a lot of sense, and obviously Memphis agreed with me.
I'm glad they consulted you too, man. It would have been good.
They should have.
Zach Clinton, the general manager, the 38-year-old it's 36-year-old, I should say. I don't know what you've been doing with your life. He's like 11 years younger than you, and he's general manager in the NBA.
I'll be damned. Let me know if you figure it out, will you?
I know that he's got 28 years on me. But he did talk about the fact that one thing in his press or post-draft comments that I saw about culture, the fact that they had seen a lot of Edey the year before. They knew what they were getting into, but Kleeman just talked about the culture of the Grizzlies and the fact that I thought it was a good match with what he had been through at Purdue. And does it, maybe a comment on that, but also does it change? We originally thought maybe he's going to be a lower, if he was a 17 or 19 pick, might not have the expectations of contributing quite at the same level that maybe he'll need to here. Does that change anything in your mind? How do you view that?
Well, I think there are upside guys and then there are plug and play guys. And I think when you get to the back end of the first round and you're dealing with good teams who have bad picks, you're kind of looking more for those plug and play guys. I think the Lakers made a great pick. I think the Celtics made a great pick. But I think Memphis was in this different kind of situation where they're a good team. They're ready to compete now. They've got their core. They just had a ton of injuries this year. So much like the year the Warriors had their season destroyed by injury, ended up with the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick, which they blew on James Wiseman. Memphis was like a back end of the first round sort of team drafting in the lottery. Yeah. So I think they're looking at Zach Edey as a guy who comes in and, is in their rotation right away. And I think that's obviously what he was looking for. And I think it's an opportunity for him to, come in and play a role on a good team. As I've said all along, is NBA teams have only seen Zach Edey as the best player on his team. And those 2 years as the best player on his team were his only 2 years ever as his best player on a basketball team. So now you have to look at that and you have to boil that down to, hey, here are 4 or 5 things he can do who can really help us, who can really make Ja Morant better, who can really take some pressure off Jaren Jackson Jr., who can really help free up Desmond Bane for threes, stuff like that. And I think the screen setting, the rebounding, the physicality are a couple of things Memphis is going to need from him right away. They have a chance to be a 50, 55, 60 win team this year. I know the West is never easy, but they got a lot going for them right now, and Zach Edey could fit right into it.
Yeah, no question. It's quite a day for him and the whole. What'd you think of the fact at Matt Painter's house where they had their little watch party with Zach Edey? That pretty cool tribute to Mason Gillis and a Lance Jones. I don't know how far Lance had to go, but Mason's been involved with the workouts already at Duke. Pretty neat experience that Zach was being able to be supported by not only guys that are currently here, Braden Smith, obviously there. I saw Caleb First and some others, but what'd you think about that?
Well, I think the whole team was there, save for the guys who aren't here right now. Jabari Harris is trying out for the Mexican national team. Camden Heide, Will Berg, and Sasha Stefanovic left earlier this week for their little overseas tour. So those guys weren't there, but a lot of guys, you mentioned Lance Jones, Mason Gillis. I think it really underscores, it sounds like such a trope and it sounds like such a cliche, but people talk about like basketball teams being families and stuff like that. And Purdue's always had this kind of close knit sort of deal going where they get guys who hit it off well together. They keep them together for a matter of time, and they actually form these close bonds, and they want to come back to campus, and they want to be around their old teammates and things like that. And I think Mason Gillis coming out to Purdue from Duke speaks volumes. Another little anecdote: Mason Gillis came to practice yesterday. There's something about this on our site, and afterwards he pulled Trey Kaufman-Renn aside, or didn't pull him aside. They were talking, and they were clearly discussing jump shooting. So he was, from my perspective, giving Trey Kaufman-Renn some insight on jump shooting, which is a big emphasis for Trey Kaufman-Renn this season as he moves into a more prominent role.
Yeah. Well,
I want to add some context there. Trey Kaufman-Renn last year was the guy who took Mason Gillis' starting position.
Yeah.
Mason Gillis, a lot of guys in that position would have resented Trey Kaufman-Renn all year long, been a problem in the locker room. By every account, Mason Gillis was the consummate teammate, loved Purdue, was grateful to Purdue, was nothing but supportive to Trey Kaufman-Renn and everyone around him. And I think what you saw yesterday from Mason Gillis in these two little anecdotes speaks volumes about what he is. That kid's going to make it. He's going to do pretty well for himself.
Yeah, he is a very unique individual. And one of the stories of this season, yes, there's a lot of attention played on obviously Edey and Braden Smith and Lance Jones and whatever, but Mason Gillis just may have been the guy that got him over the top in some ways because of his role. All right, I have to ask you a kind of silly question, but maybe one that you can ponder.
I'll probably have a silly answer.
You may, the Ministry of Silly Answers, but you can. Who's Purdue's next? This is what the fourth first-round pick under Matt Painter, which Juwan Johnson, Caleb Swanigan in 17, and of course Jaden Ivey, and now Zach Edey. Who's the next? Is there another first-round draft pick on this team? Is that Miles Colvin, Braden Smith? I know you know the whole cast of characters, or is that a way too early to tell, or just some silly thing that was fun to tell?
It is an interesting question, and one I've not delved into quite yet. Miles Colvin's got everything you want, but he just hasn't done anything yet at the college level. I mean, that could happen this year. Camden Heidi's got a lot of stuff going for him athletically. He's got an NBA body. Again, hasn't done enough at the college level. Even talk about him in that context yet. Braden Smith is a good enough basketball player to play at any level. He's obviously going to face size questions. I think Fletcher Lawyer is a professional shooter. Whether or not he can get to that level, he knows how to play. He knows how to make shots. He's smart enough. And if you had told me, or if I had told you back 6 years ago, Bryn Forbes, you remember Bryn Forbes, was going to be a multi-year pro and, get multiple contracts and get in the NBA's retirement program, what would you have said? Yeah. Duncan Robinson, right? Like
4 years ago, Duncan Robinson's in Division III, wasn't he, or wherever he was?
They come in all shapes and sizes, and if you can shoot, you can play. So I think there's a possibility there. I think way, way, way down the line, when you're Daniel Jacobson and you're 7'3" and you can shoot threes and you can move your feet, you never know. But obviously, that is a long way out. I don't think either of Purdue's juniors right now, or any of Purdue's three juniors right now, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, I can't imagine any of them being early entry type guys, but you never know. There's no harm in putting your name in, and then you never know what's going to happen. There are, as I always say in the NBA, and I watch a lot of NBA basketball, they do come in all shapes and sizes. So the days of just looking at them and saying, oh, this guy's automatically disqualified because of this, or this, or this, or this guy's too small, or this guy's too big, I'm not sure that stuff matters anymore. There are like 6'5" guys who play like power forwards, and there are like 6'10" guys who play like point guards. Centers are getting smaller. Small forwards are getting bigger. Power forwards are becoming guards. It's there are fewer positional boundaries and there are fewer deal breakers, I think, than there ever have been. It's becoming more of a positionless game every year. And there are guards in the NBA smaller than Braden Smith.
Yeah.
Braden Smith showed what he can do in pick and roll last year with Zach Edey. And, you put him with a professional big man who that's what he does. You never know. Fletcher Lawyer, I mentioned the guys who can make jump shots, who just have kind of found their way to hang around. And that's something to keep in mind, too, is if you just play 4 or 5 years in the NBA, you made it.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a life. You are in the retirement program. You have made a good amount of money. Being a successful pro doesn't mean winning, being an all-star and being a multi-time NBA champion or anything like that. It means making a good life for yourself. And I think there's a couple guys on this team that would have a wide range of outcomes. It's just a few of them have to do more at the college level.
It's interesting with Edey and whether it's the absolute truth on his contract, $26.2 million for 4 years, 2 years guaranteed. That's a good life, no matter what happens. That's a good life and good for him. It has the ability to be generational wealth if he can just hang in there and play. And I don't think I think it would be kind of silly to bet against him from that standpoint. It'll be interesting to see. All right, with the others in terms of free agents. Lance Jones has done some tryout things. Anybody, you never know what guys may get their chances down the road in the league. Even a guy like Mason Gillis, who's going to spend this year at Duke, on paper is it doesn't look like he's an NBA guy, maybe, but again, guys work their way in the league. I like your comment about all shapes and sizes. You want guys that are good citizens and great competitors. Purdue has a whole host of those guys.
Well, to Mason Gillis, first off, obviously he's got one more year on a pretty big stage to show what he can do. But it doesn't have to be the NBA either. If
good
you play a long time overseas, you make pretty good money. Ask Juwan Johnson how he's done. Now he might be an outlier because he's a fringe NBA guy who just didn't have a position. But he's gone over there and he's still playing, and he's made a lot of money. A lot of it's been, tax-free from a U.S. perspective. Expenses have been pretty minimal. He's not found himself in a war zone yet, but it's kind of come to him a few times, which is unsettling. But Lance Jones is interesting. Here's a guy who can go to the G League, who can go overseas. He is NBA fast. He's NBA athletic. He's NBA quick. He already shoots threes from 3 feet behind the line anyway. So
he's ready.
If he can, just kind of get on their radar and get an opportunity, you never know. I mean, there are randos everywhere, all over that league, who just got an opportunity and found a way to provide value to somebody. And, him being a multi-positional defender, him being a guy who can create for himself against NBA caliber athleticism, in my opinion, a guy who can make threes, might not necessarily be his thing at the NBA level, but he did pretty damn good at it for Purdue, didn't he?
Yeah.
But also can play at an NBA pace. You never know. Again, all you have to do is put yourself on the radar, get an opportunity, and make the most of it. If you get a 10-day contract in 3 separate seasons, unless they've changed this in the collective bargaining agreement, you're in the retirement program. And as I said before, if you get one guaranteed contract, if you just get enough service time to get in that retirement program, you've made it. That is a big, big deal. And there are guys who, were drafted, got to the NBA, who just didn't get to that 3rd year. And had they just hung on a little bit longer, Dakota Mathias is in that situation right now. He needs one more year of service. And he is going to obviously work to try to get that. That could be one 10-day contract for somebody.
Yeah.
Robbie Hummel fell short. Carson Edwards, I think, probably fell short. I'm not sure. Haven't looked that up. But if you can just get an opportunity, get a couple of opportunities, get in somebody's good graces, get a favor from somebody here and there. It may not necessarily fill your pockets right now, but down the line, it can be a really big deal. I wouldn't write off Lance Jones's chances here whatsoever. Again, I keep mentioning guys like Bryn Forbes.
Yeah.
He was at Cleveland State. He transferred up to Michigan State, played 1 year there, 2 years there.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of money. He's done very well for himself.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. We always appreciate your insight and thank you for that. And always a really big night. It speaks well for Purdue, certainly to have Zach Edey get that recognition and the entire program. Very impressive that they've had 3 now in the last 8 drafts. That's 3 first rounders. That's pretty good. And
2 lottery picks in the last 3 years.
Yeah, amazing.
A pretty good notable.
Yep.
Now the next step is for these guys to distinguish themselves.
Yeah.
I think Jaden Ivey still got an opportunity. He plays for how should I put this nicely? His franchise is not well run. They're in a bit of tumult right now, going under new leadership again. He'll be playing for his 3rd coach in 3 years, which is never ideal for young players. Zach Edey's going to have an opportunity to not only, play right away, but win a lot of games. And if those guys are able to really establish themselves as accomplished NBA players and not just NBA players, Purdue's not really had one since Etuan Moore. Etuan Moore, Brad Miller, those guys who, just found a way to hang on forever, but were never, real standouts. Brad Miller might have had a nice little run there for a while when he was trying to find
Brian
Shaquille O'Neal.
And Cardinal got
Cardinal had the Cardinal had the big year in Golden State that got him the big contract.
But still, it's a money making opportunity.
No, he had the big year somewhere else that got him the contract in Golden State, right? Is that how it went?
Then he ended up going to Dallas and winning an NBA championship and did well for himself. So, All right, Brian, thanks again, and we will be next week. I think we're going to have Mike Carmen on and talk a little bit of
big shoes to fill, Carmen.
Big shoes to fill. Mike Babinski's comments and some other things. Mike's always a good guy to catch up with. Kind of looking at the big picture of college athletics and trying to make sense of it. We'll do that as well. I want to thank the Union Club Hotel. Reminder also to what is it, Brian? We want people to like. They can even leave a positive comment. They can subscribe.
Subscribe. Leave a productive comment if you have something valuable to say. If you don't, keep it to yourself or post it on Facebook. Better yet, if you're listening to this as a podcast, I think it's subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. 5-star review.
5-star review. But you can also, another novel idea for the end of June is to subscribe to GoldandBlack.com, and there's some information if you're watching this on YouTube below how to do that too, in a special offer. So we would appreciate that. I know Brian would appreciate it. I would appreciate it too.
We have a website called GoldandBlack.com.
With
I am not a YouTube employee, even though
a lot of people think
it seems like that's what people know me for nowadays. But
thousands of subscribers to our website, and
I'm not Mr. Beast.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you. Have a great 4th of July as well, a safe one too, and we'll see you on the. I guess it would be the next Saturday. It'll be hard to imagine it's July the 6th, so we'll do that as well. Have a great weekend, all. Thank you.
Eat it, British.
There you go.